morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5 and episode number 700. Yes, the odometer just turned and you are all here for it, of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Friday, July 25th, 2025, and it is a bit of a gray day here at the Beaver Lodge. We had a little tiny bit of rain yesterday. Didn't really get hit very hard. I know that there was a big thunderstorm warning, and even someplace got some tornado warnings at some point during the evening and the day yesterday. We didn't get hit by much of that. But it's still gray and cloudy here. So as you can see, my face, as it appears on the screen, doesn't have all the usual sunlight onto it as it often does here at the Beaver Lodge, which means that hopefully today I will not come up with a little bit of ghost face during the show. As I've seen the last couple of episodes there, when the sun gets particularly intense, I'm a little washed out. So hopefully all my color will be here today. Oh man. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kids and Cubs, how is your mental health doing today? I am doing fine. Did enjoy having a bit of a day off yesterday in that I didn't have to get up early to do the show, but of course I was up with you in the chat to watch it with you, see your reaction. You guys were just lovely with our guest, Tony. He had such beautiful things to say and about her and her music. So thank you very, very much for that. I'm sure that when she gets to see them, she will very much appreciate everything that you've had to say, and it will touch her very profoundly. But thank you for those positive comments. A bit of an apology also on my part for being a little late today with starting the show. A couple of technical issues here at the Beaver Lodge, but I'm not particularly tech savvy, but did manage to resolve them. And of course, for the second time this week, for some reason, I posted the wrong link to the socials before starting the show. So this time I had a chance to correct it before the show countdown started. Thanks to Kit Uncover for pointing it out to me. So a little late. So I thank you for your patience, however, because this time everything, once it started, relatively smoothish. For those who watch the countdown during the show, a little bit before we're watching live, we had some graphics sort of appear and then disappear and then reappear. I'm, s- uh, I no longer have the excuse that I'm new here when it comes to production because I've been doing it solo enough times now that I should have it down pat, but I still mess up. what can I say? I'm only a beaver. But I do thank you for your patience. But mental health is going well as well because I did have the opportunity on Wednesday evening to have some quality time with Lady Laura Babcock of the O Show. Those of you who watch are sometimes, a lot of fans of our show happen to also be a fan of the O Show. There's a little bit of cross pollination between us two. So it was finally nice to get to meet Lady Laura in person, along with a fan as well who had shown up. Um, because it's always nice to meet fans. What can I say? But yes, we had a wonderful dinner together, discussed a little business, and got to know each other a little more as well. Took, of course, some promo shots because later on today, I will have the distinct pleasure of being a guest on the O Show, the next episode. So we will be recording that later today at around 1. Yeah, I think 1 p.m. today if everything goes well. So looking forward to that. It's always a joy to spend some time with Lady Laura, whether it's on show or in person, and of course, Kits and Cubs, because if it's not on internet, it didn't happen. I must. So that was us enjoying a little bevy or two at a wonderful restaurant called Cow Thai. If you ever go to Ottawa, it's on Murray Street in the market. Wonderful service, wonderful food. We, yeah, a little getting to know you, getting to know you, getting to know all about you. And, well, all all that happened, in terms of getting to like you, um, is that we ended up liking each other even more. She's just as wonderful, delightful, fabulous, and fierce, in real person as, she is on the show, and, we had a wonderful time, and I am sure that, a lot more, uh, much more, productive collaboration will ensue as a result of our meeting. So, yes, it was good for the soul. I mean, good company, good food, a little bit of an outdoor patio. You know, what's not to like? So, yeah, a great evening. Thank you, Laura. Thank you also to the other lovely person who had joined us, who didn't want as much camera time, but still lovely person who joined us. And just want you to know that I enjoyed meeting you as well. Very much. And I hope to have an opportunity to meet with you as well again in the future. Delightful company from both of you and a delightful time. It's going to be a very happy memory I'm going to keep for a very, very, very long time. So there you go, Kits and Cubs. Alliances at the Beaver Lodge. We're building alliances with other shows and other platforms, and deepening our friendships, and that will definitely lead to better programming and better initiatives in the future. I have no doubt, because when good people get together, good things tend to happen. So, and of course, that means that you, as the DAMFAM, will get to benefit. Yay! So, thank you for everyone who also posted some lovely supportive comments with the pictures that circulated from all of that. It was it's nice to read them. They always provoke a warm fuzzy. Okay. Uh, let's see here if we can do a very quick roll call before we get into it. We have Kit Sharon with us this morning. We have Kit and Cover, of course. Thank you for your help today, preventing me from making a big mistake. That's always, always, always very appreciated when I have an opportunity to save face before I face plant. So thank you, Kit Uncover. Kit Lori Sue, hello, good morning. Kit Argosi Acres, good morning to you. Kit Bucky, hey, lovely to see you, my friend. I'm glad that you're here. Kit Mohan, and hopefully family as well. Hello, everyone. Lovely to see you here in the chat. Kit Saucy, thank you so much. Standing guard here for the Beaver Lodge here in the chat, and always contributing wonderful content. Kit Grace, good morning. Saying good morning, everyone, as well. So, hello, nice to see you. Kit Jillian is here again today. That's so lovely. I always enjoy seeing you here, as well as Kit playing with 3D. Hello. Wishing everyone a good morning as well. Kid Hyper T here today. Here, wishing everyone buen dia, gente. And let's see, who else do we have with us? Do we have anybody else this morning? Kid Frankie, hey, saying good morning. Good morning to you, good friend. Nice to see you with us. And still going through the roll call. The roll call today is a little longer because of the delay. So I have to take a look at everybody who's chatted. So there's a little more to go through. Kit Wishful is with us again today. Hello, lovely to see you, as is Kit Cassie. Hello, good morning to you, and say good morning to the cowboy, please. And is that everyone today? I'm still going through here very quickly. Lots of chat going on already. The kits are getting onto it already. Kit Nona Carol, lovely to see you as well. Good morning, dear one. If you did leave me any tiramisu tips, I missed them. So, so again, haven't made it yet. Your input is more than welcome. Kit Kat W is here with us as well this morning. So lovely to see you in the chat. Kit PNC Bio wishing everyone a good morning in the chat, and we are returning those wishes to you. So lovely to see you here as well. And I think now I must have everyone because I'm seeing a lot of names repeat here. Oh no, Kit Ryan sliding in right at the plate at the last second to get a little hello from everyone here. And I think that is everyone now. All right. And we have, of course, Miss as well, because I said Moana and family, but give a specific shout out to Miss, who is Miss Shadika, who's joined us. We also have Miss Blue Ocean. Hey, hello. How are you? Haven't seen you for the last couple of days. So nice to see you here. And I hope that things are going better for you, because I know you've been having a bit of a tough time. So just let you know that you are still in our thoughts, and we are still rooting for you, and hoping that all goes well. And that is officially everyone now, I think. If I missed you, I'm so sorry. I was scrolling pretty fast to make sure that I did try to get everyone. Okay, Kits and Cubs. A bit of a slower show for us today. The news has been a little slower the last couple days after the Prime Minister left the meeting of the first ministers, even though they had another day of meeting. Things sort of slowed down a little bit. But one of the big things, oh, apparently I missed Kit Elaine. I thought I mentioned her pretty early on, but if I have, that's on me. Mea culpa. Kit Elaine, hello, good morning. Hello, dear one. Kisses. Ooh, that's. Can't make that mistake again. I, for those who are listening at home, I just signed myself with a cross. I actually don't know how much worth or value that's going to have. I'm rather a lapsed Catholic, but for whatever good it does. But yes, definitely, mea culpa. There we go. Yeah, exactly, Kit Lane. How did you miss me? I I'm asking myself the same question, dear one. I'm asking myself the same question. I must have said it in my head. Yeah, that's it. That's the ticket. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Ah. Yeah, I just wanted special attention, Kit Elaine. That's all. Yeah, that's it. That was my motivation. All right, kids and cubs. Um, of course, before we get into um, whatever's happened after meetings and stuff, the big news yesterday, and I really don't know what to say to it. Um, it's news that was shocking for a lot of people, wasn't shocking for others. People happen to follow the law. in many ways. But yesterday, the decision in the trial against the four, I guess now former junior world hockey players for Team Canada in the case against EM. And of course, here we're going to give trigger warnings for SA. Came down, and as many people expected, but maybe didn't want to say publicly prior to, the decision came down as a not guilty for everyone involved. Um, there's lots of reaction to that from, remember, not guilty doesn't mean innocent. And as well to um, darker and uglier reaction. Um, there might be people that seen the post by Kean Bexty afterwards, you know, sort of rubbing his hands and considering EM fair game now. Of course, a lot of the comments on, um, you know, darker comments. See, this is why you don't always believe women. To uh, comments about, see, this is why women don't report because this is what we get. And then pointing to other decisions lately, like the decision in the Diddy case as well. And, this is why we don't report because we put ourselves through this. And ultimately, this is what we get. Uh, those who had been following the case had some weirdness with juries being thrown out and then ultimately it becoming trial by judge rather than a trial by jury. And the judge in this case um, decided that the evidence did not meet the test of beyond a reasonable doubt. Um, now, for those who are following more closely the testimony and that type of stuff, um, there were things that happened during the trial and way that testimony came down, and that would have led people to believe as it was going on that this was pretty much the inevitable verdict because alleged contradictions had been raised. Um, uh, all the issues having to do with regards to consent um, based on the testimony uh, didn't seem to be as clear as you know, I said no before, I said no during, and I said no after. And it was even the issue of looking at whether or not, even if consent had been given at the beginning, was consent maintained throughout. The judge even decided on, even on that point, um, that there was no evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. Again, not beyond all doubt, but yeah, just beyond a reasonable doubt. But even there, the judge determined that. Um, um, I, having not been in the courtroom, having not been privy testimony, having only has seen news reports like everybody else, and have not having had all the evidence in front of me, uh, the way that the judge had, I cannot, I don't have an opinion on the judge's uh, wisdom or deliberations. I would just be armchair quarterbacking from, you know, without access to all the information. But it's given how profile the case was, and given uh, I'm trying to use delicate words here. Uh, the nature of the activities uh, involved, uh, the ever changing situation based on what happened. There's a difference between agreeing to go back to someone's hotel room one on one and then everything else that happened after. Um, Level of uh, consumption of alcohol or other things, or that may or may not have been in play here. Um, it's it, it wasn't the easiest case, clearly, um, and it was a very high profile case. Um, so there's a lot of people who invest themselves in a case like this, and there's a lot of people that there's whole other things that get layered on top of a case like this in the public sphere. People who try to use the case to advance other points or advance other causes, but when it comes to a case, it's only what goes on in the courtroom that matters. All the stuff that happens afterwards, what society does with the case, how media decides to take it, how advocacy groups, um, whether you're advocating for something normal or not, um, and movements latch on to a case that's high profile in the public domain and do what they want with it and run with it. All of that doesn't matter in the courtroom. In the courtroom, it's just the testimony and the evidence. And the judge decided in this case that the evidence didn't meet the standard. Um, I I'll be totally honest. I don't know what to do with that type of decision. I Yeah, a lot of people will have hot takes and will run with it and say, this is what this means and this is what signifies. And but I, if I'm trying to be as fact based and not doing the things that I tell people not to do, not trying to fill in blanks in the story, things that I do not know with things that I would want to be true or wish to be true or need to be true to then move forward with a certain narrative like these five people were terrible, and even if there wasn't enough, they still should have been convicted of something because all that happened there is just gross and disgusting and wrong. uh, I could do that, but then I'd be guilty of what I often admonish other people doing, is filling in blanks with what I want to be true for five people. Um, if we look at the events, as many people have, um, deserved some consequence. But I have to accept that the judge was the person who was the best placed to know, given that they are the ones that saw all the evidence and had time to deliberate and check against other case law. And you know, uh, does this mean that maybe uh, you know is there something wrong with the standards by which we evaluate in order to determine in cases such as these what constitutes beyond a reasonable doubt? Perhaps. Uh, there'll probably be a lot of people talking about that in the future. And maybe there will be a push at some point to try and revise those standards in such a way. And maybe it could be that people will look after this and say, as distasteful or as unsatisfying as this verdict is, uh, if we're looking at our legal system, the law was indeed followed, and the proper standards were indeed applied. And in this case, just the nature of the evidence was such that it was not clear enough, consistently clear enough, in order to be able to justify a guilty verdict. Uh, but I don't know. I have to plead ignorance here, and I do not know. So I cannot say more than the verdict is the verdict, and I have no reason to suspect that the judge is incompetent or that the judge um, had a bias towards the defendants over the plaintiffs. There seemed to be no talk about that at all during the course of the trial. Um, none of those types of complaints made the news. Uh, so I guess it's a question of whether or not I choose from this point on with this case to still have faith in the justice system, that it works as it is supposed to, or whether or not I don't. Uh, I I and I have nothing other than, you know we live in Canada, and we do have a pretty good justice system overall, and hopefully that's what was in effect for this case. And if it wasn't, hopefully there'll be enough people interested in this case to be reviewing things and seeing whether or not um, there are changes that need to be brought. And again, for people who came to the show maybe looking for a little heat, um, that will probably be unsatisfying as well. And I admit it, I'm not feeling particularly great saying it. Um, but if I don't want to do the sensational stuff that a lot of other shows do, and claim some travesty of justice has occurred here when I have no basis, and I would have no basis other than not liking the ultimate verdict on which to say that. Um, this is about the best I can offer, sadly. The plaintiff has 30 days, I believe it is, to file a notice of appeal if they would want to do that. I'm not getting the sense, based on what I've been hearing in public reports, that the plaintiff will want to do this. The plaintiff uh, did state that she was very disappointed at the judge's assessment of her credibility. But I didn't really seem to hear anything from the legal team or coming from their end that was, wow, I can't believe this. This is such a travesty of justice. We're appealing. Because often you get that right off the bat. And I didn't get that. So then, of course, once might be enough, right? This experience as someone who goes on the stand uh, is very draining and taxing, particularly in this case because there were 5 defendants and you have 5 legal teams. So, you're being asked a lot of questions as a defendant, as a plaintiff in this case, many more than the defendants are being asked, right? Because, you know, uh, EM was being grilled by 5 different lawyers, whereas each defendant was being grilled by just one, right? Um, yeah, I'm I'm sorry I don't have more for you on that one way or the other. Uh, but yeah, um, said, hopefully the justice system did work as it should in this case. And hopefully, if it didn't, there will be scholars looking at this and pointing to things that could have done better, and changes will be brought to how evidence is considered in such cases. And and if everything was indeed done as it should be, um, right, then cold comfort, but not guilty does not necessarily mean innocent. And that's about all we have, really, because there's not much we can do as a result. Like I said, and on the other side, there could be advocacy groups that then push for reviews of what is the beyond a reasonable doubt standard, and see if that there are changes that can be coming from that. But I'm getting the feeling that if anything more happens as a result of this trial, it will be because external groups seize upon the decision and the process of how it came to be, and try to use whatever tools they have available to them to bring about changes at that end of the process, or that stage of the process, rather than actually relitigating the case itself. Uh, I'm trying to see here. Um, exactly, right. Got here a Kit PNC bio. There were emails among the men about how to get proof of consent, which is why they coerced her to make the video saying she agreed with what happened. Um, yep. Like I said, there was much, much uh, that was very unique about the evidence in this trial. So, you know, was the video coerced? Was the video not coerced? Uh, was it, you know, again, we hope that the judge had the discernment and the wisdom and all the tools that they needed in order to be able to define that. Uh, but as lay people listening to that evidence, right, we can make just as much a case uh, that it was coerced. And, and you could turn around, you can say, well, the judge didn't see it as coerced, so it wasn't. Uh, Again, we don't know either, right? The judge makes the best decision they can with the information they have available with available to them at the time. And uh, sometimes even judges have incomplete information. But was there enough information there for the judge to rule that those types of statements made on camera were indeed coerced, and this beyond a reasonable doubt? It seems that the judge in this case came to the decision that that was not the case. Again, I wish I could be as firm on one side or the other. Uh, you know, believe that it was, and run with that. Um, but again, if I'm following the standards that our show typically uses, um, again, I've seen no, I haven't seen video, and it's not video I would want to see. Oh God, can't believe people had to watch that. Um, uh, I didn't hear the testimony. I'm not reading the transcripts. I haven't seen any of the pieces, put into evidence. For me to make a statement of fact based on things I ignore would not be would not be in the spirit and the keeping of the show and the spirit of what we demand of others when we're criticizing and critiquing them. But yeah, there were there was so much unique to the particular details of this case, and so much that on its face is distasteful to a lot of people, if not most people, if not the overwhelming majority of people, um, that the verdict leaves a bad taste. It just does. It is unsatisfying. Um, there's nothing more I would like in a way than to live in a world that was so black and white with cases like this that one person can turn around and say, "Yeah, you did it, and you did a bad thing. And now you're paying," and it would be as simple as that. But it's not. And yeah, I like I said, I'm really at a loss for words because uh, there's a lot that went down that was wrong. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. Uh, and there's enough that is fuzzy, fuzzy enough for there to be questions, right? Um, let's put it this way: the guilt, the verdict said that the guilt was not beyond a reasonable doubt, um, but the innocence certainly isn't also beyond a reasonable doubt, right? But the onus in a court of law is proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, not innocence beyond a reasonable doubt. If it was proving innocence beyond a reasonable doubt, they would have been found guilty, I'm pretty sure. That verdict would not have been able to be given as well. But in our court system, we opt for proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And it would seem that in this case, the standard, according to the judge, was not met. And so, yeah, going forward, it's whether or not we have faith that our justice system does administer justice in a manner that is consistent with the guardrails and principles that we have established for ourselves, or whether or not in this case it hasn't. As I mentioned, if in this case it hasn't, there are other mechanisms to address that. Um, but yeah, this is not satisfying in any way, shape, or form. All right, let's see what we have here from the Kits and Cubs. See if there's anything here. Many parents are exhausted. Not everyone has the ability to energy or monitor. In my day, TV shows were considered the culprit. Uh, Kit Saucy, I agree. It's the laws that are in need of a review and rewrite based on women's rights and needs. Uh, some people sharing here. I've been under the influence and coerced into doing things when I was younger, and that's with one person. I can't imagine five. How anyone can see this as consensual is beyond me. Right? Like I said, these are all comments that make sense based on what we know, right? But all of us, like I said, don't know and haven't seen everything. But these are, listen, a lot of these things that you're saying, I am feeling. I am definitely feeling. Uh, my first reaction upon hearing the verdict was like, "What?" and then sitting back and then thinking about reports coming from the trial and what I was hearing. I was like, well, yeah, I guess I can see how one would come to that verdict. Um, but yeah, It's sometimes once the wheels of justice grind infinitely slowly and infinitely fine, the ultimate result uh, makes almost nobody happy. That does happen. That does happen. And like I said, all the comments, that I'm reading, this is why women don't report, and this is why, you know, we need better laws. This is why we need better systems. This is why we need. Um, I don't disagree. I don't disagree that we should always be seeking uh, to make things better and improve things, so that when people do seek justice, justice can actually be delivered. Um, I can't tell you that it was in this case, but I also can't tell you that it wasn't. But yeah, it's not satisfying. It's not satisfying in any way. Raises more questions. And, I'm sure we would all like um, when things are clear and they're wrapped up with a bow on it. It's like, yep, this person was guilty. Absolutely. They're going to jail. Justice has been served. It's clear that these people were not guilty. Justice was served. This is not such a case. And based on the evidence that was presented, what we know of the evidence in public, it doesn't seem like it was ever going to be that type of case that was going to give us a clear verdict with a clear rationale behind it. Um, that was so weighted to one side that all of us could just say, "Oh, a terrible thing happened, and the terrible people got what was coming with them, and now we can just move on with our lives because the bad people are being put away." And even if we did get that verdict, the guilty verdict, and the bad people were going away, and EM was getting justice. Um, what happens next for EM? Right after that, um, a lot of us tend to then lose interest in that because the story's over. We got the closure and we feel good. But all the people involved have to keep on with their lives after that, right? And um, sometimes getting justice, even if EM had gotten the conviction, uh, you know, might help, and sometimes it doesn't, right? Sometimes uh, the trauma that gets stored into the body, right? It stays with you regardless. And the justice, there's a lot of people believe that the justice that they believed would give them what they need to move on. It turns out it doesn't. But then there's more things to work on, right? These are cases that and incidents and traumas that affect lives in so many ways that the justice system alone uh, can't remedy. So, like I said, a decision that had a lot of people going, "What?" Probably a lot of people who are more familiar with law and legal procedure going, "Yeah, I kind of thought that that might happen." And a decision that probably has a lot of people turning around saying, "There's something wrong with, we're broken with the justice system, and we need to fix that." So we're probably going to see all these three narratives continue for a while out of this case. Um, and there's reason for all three of them based on what has happened here. There's a nugget of something, a kernel of something, truth of some kind, that all three of these potential future avenues for further discussion on this case can wrap themselves around and then go out and do what they wish with. And often, the further out from the case you get, the further um, the claims being made are sometimes directly tied to the very specific evidence and thresholds that were shown in the case, because motivations and objectives for moving forward with those narratives become more distant than the simple matter of ensuring justice for EM as an individual person. When we get talking about broader and larger causes. But yeah, I was, when the verdict came down and I heard of it, my first sort of reaction was like, oh, God. Because it's not, like I said, I have no other word. It's just not satisfying. It just doesn't. And there's no elegant way to segue away from this type of subject as well. So, at the risk of appearing somewhat callous, on to the next subject. Ugh, God, I hate doing this. Ugh. It's just, listen, these are not fun subjects to discuss at all, and often I try not to discuss them when it's just a matter of just a criminal thing happened. We're not a crime back and forth reporting show. It's more political stuff, but this case was so inherently political in many ways, um, that and such a big moment that we can't. You can't avoid it. It's not like we can turn around and say there is no news here. There is news, right? And and it does have a political element, absolutely, here. And even if it didn't have a political element, we are also not just Canadian politics, but Canadian culture. And well, we're talking hockey here, right? So it's unavoidable. It's a subject that we do have to talk about. Um, but I am admittedly limited in my ability to speak to it with any authority. I just am, and I have to, on our show, as we often try to do, we try to put our biases up front and put our limits up front and try not to fill in blanks. And so trust me, it would be a much easier show for me to do, to just hop on the mic and, say, this is a terrible travesty of justice. They should have gone to jail. But I would be performing. I would be performing for clicks and likes. The harder bit to do is to admit what you don't know and you know state that uh, you trust with an inflection, with a question mark, that the justice system got it right, because we live in a country that has a pretty solid justice system and that has mechanisms um, to hold to account judges should they make incorrect decisions. Somebody pointed to a case that was made many years ago where a judge had told a certain plaintiff that maybe they should have kept their knees together. Well, we saw what happened with that one, right? There was big public backlash, and then there was, uh, you know, methods put in place to review that judge's conduct, to, look at that court case again. Um, I'm not sure that this case and this decision would lead to that. right? There seems to have been no complaints about the judge throughout the entire case. There has been no complaints about the judge in what I've read since. So it would seem the judge did the job in a manner that both sides respect. Um, like I said, it's clarity and closure would have been much, much better and easier to deal with, but we didn't get it. We just didn't get it. All right, kids and cubs. Oh, God, I hate stories like that. Moving on to the Prime Minister. We had a meeting yesterday, much touted meeting yesterday with Inuit-led organizations, the Inuit-Crown Partnership Committee, to discuss, among other things, Bill C5 and fast tracking projects. Uh, and as we've been talking about over the past few days, uh, the first summit with First Nations in particular, which was the largest of the three community groups, um, while not a failure, was not as successful as it could have been. And then we saw uh, the meetings of the first ministers, where the first day had to do with meeting representation from Indigenous communities. And in this case, it seemed to go better. And there was an initiative spearheaded by Premier Wapkanu to have the premiers sit with um, Indigenous leadership at a future meeting. Again, not sure if that's a meeting that also includes the Prime Minister or if it's just between premiers and them to resolve their one on one issues, the ones that have nothing to do with the federal government. But we will see how that goes. We also had another instance where Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Alberta signed a deal for pipelines and rail. That did not include Manitoba at the moment because Manitoba was participating in a different way, more participatory management way, in order to get Indigenous participation in at the ground level, and did not sign that document because he did not want to behave as if free, prior, and informed consent was assumed. A lot of media have taken that and have run with it to do the typical thing they do, talking about Indigenous veto for all intents and purposes, and a lot of people, um, again, armchair quarterbacks yelling about, screaming about, so we can't keep letting the Indigenous people do this. We need to do that. So basically, preaching, you know, like this. We're okay with consulting with them so long as they say yes, but when they say no, we need a way to, push the project through. No matter what, we can't let them hold us up. We have a lot of that type of commentary. Commentary I'm not particularly a fan of, to be totally honest, because you're not getting it. You're not getting it. Um, but out of that, there's a lot of media that is taking the position that Manitoba walked out on it, or Manitoba is killing the pipeline thing. That was not the impression I got based on the comments. It's certainly not the impression that Danielle Smith seemed to have, and she is the first one to run to a microphone and want to trash someone. And she didn't do it. So I have to believe that what's going on the ground might be um, much more subtle and not as dramatic as some of the press is relating it. I'm not sure that Manitoba is indeed standing as a roadblock. There's also BC, for example, is not the biggest fan of an oil pipeline type project. Um, but David Eby has been often using the fig leaf of, well, there is no proponent yet, so there is no project on the table, so there's no point in discussing it. But you don't get the impression that he would be all that thrilled, even if there were. Let's put it that way. Um, So we'll see where those go, but, I did the show 2 days ago with you live and, mentioned, this element here that, Manitoba hadn't signed, and it didn't seem that, the Premier of Alberta was too fazed by that, and, and what, the Premier of Manitoba said in his interview and what the Premier of Alberta said in their interview. It did seem to be that they were on the same page and were wanting to arrive at the same destination, but we're just using different processes to get there. And it may be very well that Mr. Canoe, Premier Canoe, is using the correct process here. And that when he comes to the table, let's say, and does get to the consent and does sign on to that, that the project still doesn't go forward because the other three provinces are using other methods, that Indigenous communities that happen to have land where those provinces happen to be geographically situated, um, don't buy in to what those premiers have done, right? So ultimately, the story that's right now being described as, well, because of Manitoba, it looks like this pipeline thing is dead. Um, it might end up being several months from now or years from now that only Manitoba actually did the work of making sure one could take place. That's how this thing might evolve in the end. So again, we don't really uh, know with regard to that. Um, but but there seems to have been more progress and more optimism coming out of that meeting. Members of the Métis National Council who will have their meetings with the Prime Minister around the 7th. And again, Victoria Pruden of the Métis National Council made a point of saying that the Métis National Council is not a government, right? It's just a, you know, it's representation, but it's not a government. So when the governments that are there meeting under Section 35 of the Constitution, the one that particularly applies to Métis people, we'll see what happens with that. But as the president of the Métis National Council, she seemed to be very positive based on the discussions as they took place. Now, when it comes to the Inuit community, it would seem that there too, the prime minister would have had a good day with them. Uh, all reports that I've been able to read and listen to, based on the meetings from yesterday, seem to be very, very, very positive, which is good. My first impression would have been to say, okay, well, then the prime minister and their team did learn something from the first meeting and applied different strategies or different measures to make to involve people earlier in, and maybe that's why the reason for which the meeting went well. But it turns out that there may be another reason while those ones went better, and it has something to do with the inherent structures that are in place in the north, uh, because territories have a different relationship with the federal government than do provinces, right? We often talk about devolution agreements and that type of stuff because the federal government does more for territories than it does for regular provinces, has more responsibility. Um, there are different, and because the territories are more sparsely populated, there are different arrangements. Like when we talk about the Canada Health Act transfers, right? They work one way for provinces, but they do work different ways for territories because the populations are so spread out. You know, and I if you were basing changes in funding strictly on population growth or things of the like, or on a per capita basis, there's so few people that it would be so few dollars. And considering how much more expensive it is to deliver healthcare because of the distances and everything, the money wouldn't have the same impact up there as it does right south of 60. So there are different arrangements. With regard to the Inuit in particular, because Nunavut is the most recent of the provinces and territories, right? We just had the 20th anniversary of Nunavut Day not too long ago. Was it the 25th? Might be the 20th. I don't remember off the top of my head, but we had an important anniversary. Yay, my God, because I think I thought Nunavut came to be in 1999, so it might be 25th anniversary or something. But anyway, Nunavut is the newest of the province and territories, so their agreements, when they were shaped with the federal government, are way more modern, right? And we've already been talking about self-government and indigenous-led initiatives and that type of thing beforehand. So there are structures there that are different, that allow them to have a different relationship with the federal government. And this might be at one of the reasons for which things went more smoothly there. But I will let people from there explain it to you. I have two bits of interviews. The first one is with Premier, still for a little bit, PJ Agiaguk, Premier of Nunavut, following, and this was prior to the meeting out in Inuvik. So this is probably from 2 days ago, if I'm remembering, while the premiers were meeting. And of course, as we announced on the show a couple of days ago, Premier Agiaguk has decided to step down as premier prior to the upcoming election, which is in November, I believe, in Nunavut. So there will be an interim premier for the next few months. So we're going to show you an interview with him on Power and Politics that will talk a little bit. He will talk a bit about how the structures are different there. And this is a lot of thing that most Canadians are particularly not, probably not as familiar with, but why negotiations would be different there because of that inherently different structure. And of course, a little bit of chat of him and his tenure as premier, and some thoughts about how things have progressed during his time. Get some cups, please enjoy.
Premiers ended this week's meeting united in their focus on getting big things done with the shared goal of defending Canada against threats from the United States. They were also united in their praise for a colleague who will soon be leaving his post as Premier.
He's been a huge champion of Northern sovereignty, Arctic sovereignty. Thank you so much, PJ, for your work for the country. It's been amazing.
The Premier of Nunavut, PJ Agiaguk, joins me now. Premier, it's good to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, always nice seeing you, David.
This is probably going to be one of your last First Ministers meetings because you've decided not to run again. You have an election in the fall.
Yeah.
What's your sense of where Canada's leaders are right now in terms of dealing with what's happening with the U.S.?
Well, it gives me so much sense of pride. You look across from coast to coast to coast. There's so much unity. So I really am leaving with that pride, knowing that we're in really good hands. I think Premier Ford, as just the chair that just gave it to my good friend Rob, did an incredible job making sure that all the voices from across this country are there. Mm-hmm. So I really want to take the moment to acknowledge his leadership that really brought us all together during a very important time that we're in. The threat that we see from the United States is real. And for us to stand together, to stand united, couldn't be more important than it is now. And as a Premier for Nunavut, it's really been my honor to represent Inuit, but also to represent Canada. I think there's so much solutions we have, so much that we have to offer the world, just right within ourselves, but we have to build from within.
Right.
And I think we've really brought some of those conversations around the table here, both at the First Ministers meeting, but also at the Council of Federations as well.
At all of these forums, you've talked a lot about Arctic security, Arctic sovereignty, Arctic development, dual purpose infrastructure spending. And now as we move into the major project conversation, you've talked about the importance of Indigenous participation. And in the case of the projects you've put forward, Inuit are actually the proponents here. But there has been a skepticism and a frustration around C5 and the legislation. The Prime Minister's off to Inuvik. He's going to meet with Natan Obed and the ITK and other Inuit leaders. Are you satisfied that the national government is doing what it needs to do to ensure that the concerns are alleviated here?
Oh, absolutely. In Nunavut, there's certainty. We've worked and identified the nation-building projects with Nunavut, which is the land claims organization that's the rights holders. So I truly believe we're in a different situation in Nunavut. We've purposefully selected these nation-building with Inuit being the proponents. They are being led by Inuit for Inuit that really will have the true the benefit for the country. You look at the major projects that we brought forward right from the beginning that fit and align so well on the national interests. You look at the Arctic Security Corridor, the Grays Bay Road and Port, which I brought up so many times, because it's so important. We are at a moment where infrastructure gap between the north and south is huge. And we really got to start asserting and actually start investing in the north to assert our sovereignty. And that one project in particular aligns so well when you talk about wanting to build the backbone of our economy by opening up and diversifying our trade. Where from that perspective, there's so much opportunity around critical minerals, but also having a lot more presence in terms of the Canadian Armed Forces.
So, we did see at the summit with the AFN a lot of skepticism from a lot of First Nations chiefs. You're Inuk. What is your sense of where the Inuit are in terms of trusting the federal government? Because Natan Obed was frustrated with the C5 process. Do you think broadly Inuit are going to be on board?
Time will tell. I know the Prime Minister is just meeting with the leadership with Natan Obed, with the whole ITK board tomorrow. I know they will have a very constructive but very progressive conversation. I've been engaging with President Obed as well as throughout this whole process. I think it's so important to ensure that lines of communications are always there. We've always had an open door policy in terms of advancing some of these really exciting projects. It was very selective of us to select Inuit-led projects because Section 35 is so important. The Indigenous rights are so important and they're embedded in the Constitution. So from that perspective, I think we're very thankful for their leadership because it is their projects that we're advancing. And we've had very positive conversations with the Prime Minister just a few days ago with the First Nations here, as well as other Indigenous organizations, where I think there's an openness and a willingness to be able to have these very meaningful conversations where I think everyone just wants to be treated with respect. And they want to be given the opportunity to bring their projects forward, which really could open up their prosperity as we move forward. So in Nunavut, we're, I think, in a different situation where we already have robust regulatory systems. We've pushed Inuit-led, Inuit-driven projects that fit the definition of national significance. And so I feel very optimistic that the meeting with the Prime Minister that we just had with the First Ministers was very positive. Arctic security and sovereignty is top of mind. And I think the Prime Minister gets the importance of needing to invest in the North. And I look forward to hearing the outcomes of the meeting that he will be having with ITK.
So there you have, go Kits and Cubs. Premier P. Dagiakuk explaining a lot of the things, the realities that are different in Nunavut specifically, that make it such that there's reason for them to have much more confidence in what is going on and what it is that the Prime Minister wants to do in that case. And this is not necessarily unique to Nunavut in the sense, now, it's unique in Nunavut in that it's a majority Inuit community and things are majority Inuit-led, which is not the same as, for example, in Northwest Territories, for example. But even in the Northwest Territories, its Premier R.J. Simpson, and this is according to APTN News, mentioned, talked about the situation there and also gave some insight as to how things are different there. He was also at the Premier's meeting, and he called Carney's visit to Fort Smith because Prime Minister Carney is, made a stop at home in Fort Smith, where he was, grew up for a bit when he was a kid before it, and called it a historic moment. And when he was asked about the controversy surrounding Bill C-5, Simpson said that the legislation doesn't really apply to the Northwest Territories. Quote, "We have the Mackenzie Valley Resource Management Act, and that's a federal piece of legislation that governs our resource development system, and Bill C-5 does not amend or alter that piece of legislation," Simpson explained. Bill C-5 is obviously a huge issue across Canada. In the Northwest Territories, though, it doesn't really impact us the same way. Simpson told APTN in an interview during one of Carney's stops at a fire management office in town that he has some major projects on his wish list. Quote, "The Mackenzie Valley Highway is one of the big ones, and we've been looking to move that forward for decades," he said. "And that would connect the northern part of the territory with the southern part of the territory and connect a bunch of communities that are now only fly-in. It would also allow a connection to NORAD, forward operating location in Inuvik, to the rest of Canada." Holding back those projects, according to Simpson, has been a lack of interest from the federal government. However, Simpson suggested Carney is very in tune with the territory's asks and its potential. Quote, "We do things different in the territory. Indigenous engagement is part of our system. It's baked into our system," Simpson said. "It's not something we think about after. It's something we do from day one. Without that trust, without that relationship with Indigenous people whose land these projects are going to be built on, they're not going to go ahead in an expedited manner," he added. The Prime Minister is set to co-host with the Inuit-Crown Partnership Committee on Thursday in Inuvik with Natan Obed, President of the Inuit Tapiriit Kanatamisat, a national organization representing Inuit. So there we go. So even there, different laws, different structures, because of the nature of being a territory, apply. And therefore, there seems to be less overall concern with C5 in those regions as there are in the provinces, which might make for a smoother implementation. As well, kids and cubs, before we continue on more in depth with what happened in that meeting, I'd like to present something that Premier Wab Kinew stated in his interview with CBC following the second day of meetings between the premiers, the day that the Prime Minister did come, where he's talking about participatory management as well. And I was so happy to see this because a couple of days before in our Substack, we had actually written an editorial wondering about whether or not the Prime Minister had an aversion to participatory management after we heard further news from the summit on Friday, where he was talking about helping to bring provinces along if they didn't seem to be there, but not being willing at all to make any type of amendment to C5. And as well, when we saw that the agenda for the day did not seem to involve a lot of Indigenous input, and then the decisions with regard to what media was going to be allowed to cover and not, which seemed to choices seem to have been made in such a way to reduce access by Canadians to what Indigenous people at the meeting had to say, which Indigenous chiefs then took it upon themselves to make sure we would hear. So we got leaked audio of the 1-hour Q&A session, then we got leaked video of Obed McCready's intervention in AFN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepanak after delivering her remarks in the forum itself that she thought would have been broadcast to the nation were not, then left for a couple of moments the forum to go outside in order to be able to address media. And for those who watched it live, and I was trying to find the clip somewhere of it live, but it wasn't saved on social media. But she was actually having to apologize to the media for them not being able to have heard her in real time in the session in front of her own people. Making these remarks. Sorry that it had to be done this way, and seemed to indicate that this might have been some type of last-minute change or decision on the part of the government as to what media was going to be allowed in or out of that event and what they would be allowed to cover. Because I guess she had the impression that her remarks were going to be carried to the nation, and then found out that that was not the case. So when you added all those things together, I'm sort of wondering, is this guy into participatory management or not, or just the top-down type model? But Mr. Canoe, Premier Canoe, definitely gets it when it comes to participatory management. So we wanted to make sure that we have his words there, and this might help you understand the context of Manitoba not signing on to that initial agreement between Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. If there have been more developments since this that have happened that have made Manitoba sour, I'm not aware of them. That is always a possibility, but I'm still going on based on the last interventions I heard from Premier Smith and Premier Canoe themselves here.
To work together. To stand up for the economy, to move things along, C5, the big projects, all a key part of that. The Prime Minister had a summit with the AFN last week that mixed opinion came out of that, which I don't think is surprising given the varied opinions that would be at a summit such as that. But you had the Métis and the AFN here. The Prime Minister's off to Inuvik. He's going to meet with the ITK. Do you think there's been enough goodwill and trust built up in the last couple of months, because C5 went through so fast and the national Indigenous groups were not happy with it? I mean, do you think you're on a path to get to a level of trust where this can all work out?
So in Manitoba, I don't know that we're going to rely on C5 to build our big projects, the things that we want to do to power the Canadian economy, to help our natural resources get to market. What we're focused on is a consensus approach. We're taking the time now with the First Nations, with the Métis, have the Indigenous nations on board and working together. And if we don't have that, we're not going to move forward with big projects. On the flip side, if we can build that consensus and sustain that consensus, I think that's the model of how you get big things done. So, C5, other approaches that we're seeing across the country, I think it's an interesting time because we have a bit of an idea lab going on here right now. We're seeing different approaches to trying to get big multi-billion-dollar projects done in our country. And I think Manitoba, given the Indigenous professional class that we have, given the innovative entrepreneurial class that we have across our province, I think we got something to share with the rest of Canada as a potential path forward to getting these projects built.
Just one last thing. There was an MOU signing today with Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario to get a pipeline from west to east, and right in the middle of that's Manitoba. You were part of the MOU. Is there a reason for that? Where does your government and you fit into the possibility of a Line 5 replacement? How do you view it?
Well, I would go back to what I just said. Our priority is to get the Indigenous nations and our provincial government on the same page about what is our nations building project, because we're not only going to build up Canada, we're going to make sure that that young kid growing up on a reserve, the young Métis child, has the ability to build a career and a future for themselves. And so for us, I know this is a time where we're signing a lot of MOUs. We signed interprovincial trade MOUs while we were here. We signed one about the Port of Churchill with the province of Saskatchewan. But some of these other ones, we want to just make sure that we have the support of the Indigenous nations in Manitoba first. And so I always say that the economic horse pulls the social cart, but that other cliche about don't put the cart before the horse maybe rings through, and then making sure we got the content and the consent right before we try to push shovels in the ground is the approach we're putting our money on.
So you're not necessarily against it, but you're just not there yet. Am I understanding it correctly?
We're in a process right now that is at the start, and we think that even though maybe we're spending a bit more time in this lead stage of development, we think we're going to get to the finish line as fast or faster than anyone else.
And that right there, kits and cubs, is a fundamental principle of participatory management. It takes a little longer to get the consensus that is needed in order to get to the point where you put shovels in the ground. But by the time you do, everybody that's been involved, all stakeholders, and in this case, not just stakeholders, but right holders and treaty holders, right, which is a few levels above just mere stakeholder, you have their buy-in. What they've had to say has been incorporated into the decision-making process, has been incorporated into the decision. And once the decision is made, there is no more disagreement on the decision, and everybody has a vested interest in the decision actually being implemented, has some buy-in to the decision, has some skin in the game to the decision being implemented, that the implementation phase of the decision goes a lot more quickly and transpires in a manner that is more smooth for all parties involved. This was basically what we were wondering in our editorial. It's like, why was the Prime Minister not willing to involve First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities at the drafting stage? Why was it that there was not a lot of intervention by them at the amendment stage? Why is it that he's so resistant to opening up the bill to amendment? Why were they not involved in the planning stage for these summits? Why were they not involved in setting the agenda for these meetings? Why were they? So when Premier Canoe says that, we're not really working with C5, we're going to use another type of process where free, prior, and informed consent is not assumed or expected, but is worked at to achieve. And we try to obtain that before. And as he says, with the best interest of nations, the nation of Canada and their nations as well. In the North, the structures that are in place seem to make it such that there's no way to get to the proposal stage without participatory management from day one. And therefore, there might be better chances of getting projects off the ground in that instance. And again, you'll see that Premier Canoe, again, right, even when asked, so you'll get there eventually, not giving a guarantee that they will, but given the guarantee that if they do get there, they'll probably end up getting there before any of the other three, because they got the process off on the correct foot to start with by not assuming consent on the part of rights holders, but working to obtain it. And so, in many things we say on the show a lot, it ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. It seems that Mr. Canoe is doing the right thing in the right way. And that there are a lot of other leaders that could probably learn a lesson or two from how it is he's going about it. And when you add that on, when I added that interview on to the layer that I discovered from the president of the Métis National Council, Victoria Pruden, that it was at Premier Canoe's request or suggestion that they have that big table meeting between all premiers, all first ministers, and Indigenous leadership. And then I hear this comment from Canoe. Well, then, it doesn't really surprise me at all that suggestion came from Premier Canoe, because it's right in line. He's sort of trying to bring that participatory management ethos to that larger meeting by making that suggestion, and that all premiers agreed, which knocked me off my log. That's for sure, because I never would have expected in a million years that all premiers would have said, "Hey, that's a good idea." But it seems they did. So maybe there is some merit. Maybe there is some merit. Well, I personally believe that there is much merit in what Premier Canoe. I shouldn't say maybe there is some merit in what he is doing. I am convinced that there is lots of merit, a whole lot of merit. But maybe they will see that maybe there's some merit by dabbling, dipping their little toe in the water into working this way instead, and not first viewing Indigenous communities as an obstacle that is meant to be overcome, or something that will eventually need to be bulldozed, or a check mark that you need to, tick off a list when it comes to consultation, but an actual, honest to goodness partner in their capacity as right holders and treaty holders, not just mere stakeholders, on an actual nation-to-nation basis. Who knows? It might be crazy enough to work. But very, very, very inspired that some of these things are happening. So to get back a little bit to Mr. PJ Agiaguk, just the rest of the interview, which less specific on the projects and more on what he sees for Nunavut and the path going forward, because he's done a good amount of work in a short amount of time, and now it's time to pass the baton.
Just as a quick final point, you've decided not to run again. You're going to leave politics, maybe. Well, certainly in Charlottetown next year, there will be a different premier of Nunavut. What are you going to do next? Is there a role for you in this northern development space that, on the areas we've been talking about, that you might do as a post-political career?
This really has been the honor of my life, to be able to serve Nunavut, to be able to serve Canada. So I really want to thank the people who brought me here, but also in particular to my wife and my children, who's I feel so thankful for the support that I've been given. But yeah, there's nothing I'm actually prepared to jump into. Right now I'm really focused to keep pushing to the last minute that I am here on advancing these really exciting Inuit-led projects that really will have a huge impact to our territory. A lot of these projects have been in the visions for decades, and I think we are at a moment where we have the support of Canadians from coast to coast, and that we have to stop just talking about and actually land some of these major investments moving forward. So I do leave feeling very optimistic that there's going to be some really exciting things happening, not only in Nunavut, but right across the north in Canada. But very much will always play a supporting role in advancing that Team Canada. I've been there right from the beginning since I've taken this role. But I feel so passionate about being a Canadian that comes from the most smallest but most northern community in North America. So from that perspective, very much look forward to and following and supporting that Team Canada moving forward.
Nunavut Premier, PJ Agiaguk, thank you so much for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
Sorry, just noticed I was on mute there. So there you have it, kids and cubs. Premier Agiaguk was not premier for a very long time, but at a particularly critical juncture in the history of Nunavut, starting with a big devolution agreement and into this particular phase where it seems that we're actually not just paying lip service to Arctic sovereignty and Arctic development, but seem to be very serious about going forward with it and laying some of the groundwork for that to happen. Meeting took place, and for you next, we have some comments from Natan Obed, who is the president of ITK, Inuit Tapiriit Kanatamisat, and or Kanatamisat, depending how we're referring to it. And he is as well optimistic, which is good. Absolutely, very, very good, and welcome. And I've always liked Natan Obed when I find him to be a very quiet but strong force. I very rarely have ever heard him raise his voice. I have very rarely seen him antagonistic. There's one or two times where I've seen him upset, and because Mr. Obed is so calm and poised and professional and evenly tempered, when he does get upset, it does make you take notice, because he doesn't do it often. It's not a card that he tends to play. I have an incredible amount of personal respect for this man, seeing him for many, many, many years now on the national stage, just pushing his way forward, and making the best of the type of structures that are in place, continuously reinforcing them, continuously, gaining more capacity, and then using it positively. I believe, even though we're not always on the same side of issues and there are things to work out, I have never once, even for a millisecond, considered that he is a person of bad faith in any way, shape, or form, and that he has any other interest than doing what is right, and doing things in the right way. And he is don't let the calm demeanor fool you. This man is not a pushover in any way, shape, or form. He just goes about doing his business in a more quiet way, but not any less effective by any stretch of the imagination, and has managed to gain the respect. I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels this way about this man. Yeah, so let's just hear what he has to say. When he speaks, I always have time to listen.
Mr. Obed, you came into these meetings with concerns about whether or not the modern treaties for Inuit people would be respected. You were looking for some assurances. Did you get those?
Yes, we had a fulsome conversation that will continue in the afternoon session about the Building Canada Act, and also the key consideration of Inuit treaties and the upholding of the provisions within those treaties as a key consideration of this government. So we've had reassurances that the Bill C-5, the legislation, and the listed projects related to the implementation of Bill C-5 will not interrupt the processes under our modern treaties, and that there will be full partnership of Inuit within these processes.
Okay. Can you maybe just unpack that for us? Because there was a concern before, now it seems like that's gone, which is pretty substantial. What did you hear that gives you that feeling of assurance?
From the Prime Minister to Minister LeBlanc to Minister Hodgson, Minister Chartrand, Minister Goldmassey, all of the ministers that will be responsible for the implementation of the Act and then at the Prime Minister's direction. He was unequivocal in stating that this legislation will not interrupt the processes that have been set up under our modern treaties when it comes to environmental assessment, when it comes to project reviews. The focus has been on what types of nation building projects are Inuit interested in building, how can we identify those projects together, and then how can we make good on those projects by implementing them. So the Prime Minister and his cabinet ministers couldn't have been any clearer in their assurances to Inuit leadership about the upholding of the constitutionally protected agreements that we have with the Crown that have clear provisions around how any natural resource projects go ahead in our settlement areas.
So, again, some comments from Mr. Obed here about how it is that he is confident in the structures that are in place. Now, the journalists go on to ask him, and this is a subject that we're going to hear a lot about in our more North American press, veto. Veto, veto, veto. Are we giving Indigenous people a veto? Why do we give them a veto? Is this all about a veto? And Mr. Obed has a more unique perspective on what a veto is and is not in the case of how decision-making processes happen within his community. So I'll just play that for you.
Just real quick, does that mean you have a veto? Does that mean communities, well, land claim organizations will have a veto?
I try not to use that terminology because our agreements talk about our ability to say yes or no. The processes and the provisions in our agreements could be defined as vetoes, but really we see them as enabling. The term veto is often misconstrued as a boogeyman in these discussions about natural resource extraction projects on Indigenous peoples' lands. Inuit have spent the last 40 years trying to figure out how to create circumstances where we are a part of the process all the way through. And every single day, jurisdictions in this country veto projects. Sometimes it's non-Indigenous governments that decide it is not in the best interest of that jurisdiction through legislation that they have created. So Indigenous people and veto is not a construct that is unique within this country about how any project gets off the ground. And for us, we have democratic functions within our agreements that allow for us agree or disagree, to say yes or no, but ultimately that is a part of the de-escalation of risk that industry wants to see, that government wants to see about developments within Inuit Nunavut and the participation of Inuit throughout. So I'm really optimistic about the ability for Canada to respect our agreements in this implementation phase of Bill C-5. But still, these are early days, and we look forward to the conversations ahead.
Okay. So different perspective on what veto is here, simply because, like I said, the structure of their agreements don't assume that the answer is always going to be yes. There's allowed to say no. So is it a veto or is it not, right? Certainly, the Inuit are not unique in their ability to say no to a project. Right? Some projects that Alberta really wanted didn't come to pass because the government of British Columbia at the time said, no, not on our territory. Right? So to be looking at Indigenous right to say no as a veto that could be slapped on in order to keep the rest of us in line or stop all the rest of ours progress is such an inherently antagonistic framing of a right that every other jurisdiction has and has applied and has exercised many times in our history before. So I like that particular take on it. And again, maybe made more credible and more plausible in the minds of people by virtue of the structures that exist in the North, and particularly in an Inuvik, in Nunavut specifically, given it is a more modern territory and a more modern treaty in that sense. But again, you have to be familiar as a Canadian with the fact that there are different structures and different types of governments up there than what might be in your home province in order to be able to understand that. It then goes on in this interview to be talking about a specific announcement that was made here during the meeting, and I will let him speak to it rather than scoop him by speaking it first. So here's Natan Obed on one big development coming from the meeting.
Your next interview is here. Do you have one more question before we go?
My colleagues might have questions. I wanted to ask you about the Arctic Ambassador too, but I'll let my colleagues.
Yeah, so I just had one question actually on the Arctic Ambassador. I'm wondering if you or the ITK overall had any say in who the Prime Minister chose as Arctic Ambassador and what you make of his choice.
Well, at the last Inuit-Crown Partnership meeting in November, Minister Jolie at the time had talked about the Arctic foreign policy. It was announced in Ottawa. We co-developed certain sections of the Arctic foreign policy with the Government of Canada, and we're very supportive of the foreign policy upon its release. One of the key components of the foreign policy is the recreation of the Arctic Ambassador. We had hoped to do a full-scale co-developed process. That just didn't come to pass because of the election and because of other processes that interrupted it. I did have informal conversations with the last government about possible names. The Government of Canada has run with those possibilities and ultimately has chosen Virginia Mearns. I'm very pleased with the choice of the Canadian government. I think Virginia Mearns is going to be an incredible contributor in diplomacy at this point in time for Canada. And she's an Inuk from Nunavut, so also will bring that Inuit perspective to any room that she's in, whether here in Canada or abroad.
So just really quickly, was Virginia part of that list of names that...
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I think that's all for me.
Mr. Obed, thinking of a local perspective.
All right, and we will get to the last question as well before we leave. But with regard to the Arctic Ambassador, Kits and Cubs, from APTN, well, as published in APTN, but written by the Canadian Press here, the government of Prime Minister Mark Carney is naming its Arctic ambassador Thursday as it seeks deeper ties with circumpolar nations at a time of rising security concerns. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand's office says Virginia Mearns will be the Arctic ambassador, which will be Canada's senior Arctic official on the world stage. This is a position that made Pierre Poilievre mock and say, oh, who are they going to be an ambassador to? Santa Claus? Not realizing that there are, I think, 6 other circumpolar nations. And, everything about the opening, the Northern Passage and to rights for fishing and any other things that might be in the Arctic waters and all that type of stuff, more Arctic security, is a really big issue. It's one of the biggest issues on the global scene at the moment. So to be working with the having a representative and an envoy to discuss with the other circumpolar nations is an actually really, really smart idea. But Pierre didn't have the vision to see it at the time. Quote, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand's office says Virginia Mearns will be the Arctic ambassador, which will be Canada's senior Arctic official on the world stage. Quote, Canada is an Arctic nation, and we are at a critical moment when it is imperative that we safeguard our sovereignty and defend our Arctic interests. Mearns will advance Canada's polar interests in a multilateral forums, engage with counterparts in Arctic and non-Arctic states, and serve as a representative in our diplomatic corps. Mearns lives in Iqaluit and has worked with local Inuit governments. The appointment is part of a $35 million Arctic foreign policy that Ottawa released last December. That policy calls for science collaboration across the Arctic, tighter security coordination, and new consulates in Alaska and in Greenland. Those pledges came ahead of the government's announcement of cuts to the Foreign Service, part of Carney's plan to finance a massive boost in military spending. Carney told an event in Inuvik, Northwest Territories this morning that he would officially announce the appointment later today. Well, that was yesterday. The appointment comes after U.S. President Donald Trump has suggested Canada should become the 51st American state, while repeatedly floating the idea of annexing Greenland. Inuit Tapiriit Kanatamisat, which represents the interests of Inuit in Canada, has voiced concern about another wave of militarization of their territories, as seen during the Cold War. Those exercises have over decades included forced relocations, loss of property, and disruptions to traditional ways of life. The organization has said that Inuit want to help defend Canada against foreign threats, but in a way that respects local realities. The group has been in touch with Inuit counterparts in Greenland and Alaska about recent events. And here, kids and cubs, we have an image for you, our new Arctic ambassador, Virginia Mearns, here. So if you see this person on your TV screens in the coming months and days, you will know that she is representing and defending our interests in the Arctic with mostly other circumpolar nations, but other states as well, who might want to be able to access, let's say, the Northern Passage through other ways, right? They don't necessarily, not only circumpolar nations have interests in any development that's happening there, but of course, probably the primary stakeholders in this case, and rights holders and treaty holders in this particular case. So one final question. Mr. Obed was also asked about some local issues, which, normally we could say doesn't have a national scope. But in this case, given the interesting relationship and the unique relationship between the territory and the federal government, even local issues are federal issues in some way, shape, or form. So getting back to the question here, I'm going to back it up just a second or two because I believe the question had started before I had cut the mic. So you might get a couple of seconds of repeat here, but hopefully we will get the full question in so that at the beginning.
Thinking of a local perspective, in the conversations of Arctic security, our locals are more focused on wanting to ensure, like, addressing our housing crisis, the drug crisis, mental health crises, even just access to their own entrepreneur development. Do you know if these conversations are part of uplifting our territories, other than just like military might? And if you could explain what conversations, if they are having around that.
We've been meeting since about 8:30 this morning. In the first 2.5 hours, we talked almost exclusively about infrastructure, and not just about dual-use infrastructure for military and communities, about essential infrastructure, whether it be healthcare, housing, community venues that bring our cultures together and cross, elders to youth. So all Inuit leaders from across Inuit-Nunavut talked about the importance of communities first. And in this, we have a list of 79 infrastructure projects that total about $30 billion. Some of those projects may end up as listed projects under the Bill C-5 legislation, but many of those projects are aimed at just building our communities and thinking about the essential needs of Inuit across Inuit-Nunavut. So yes, the community perspective and the urgent needs, whether it be where healthcare is delivered, or whether or not you can get the full suite of programs to graduate from high school in your community, or the need for an Inuit University. All of these issues were brought forward to the ministers and the Prime Minister, and we believe that we've been heard.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
So that was Mr. Natan Obed, president of Inuit Tapiriit Kanatamisat. Again, there's something about that man's energy. I just like his gentleness. Really resonates with me, and but he's fully abreast of the situation, knows his file like the back of his hand, but just doesn't have to be loud and boisterous to get his point across. Like I said, I've said it before, I have immense respect for this man, and I've had it for a long time. And I have never been unimpressed, even after all these years, whenever he's on camera and he is talking. Like I said, I have all the time in the world for anything Mr. Obed has to say. And hopefully maybe one day we can get him as a guest on the show, because I'm sure he has some really good stories to tell. Kids and cubs, we're already at the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us, because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring, and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. And if you share our content with a little bit of yourself there, saying what it is you're sharing, why it is you're sharing it, or what it is about it that resonated with you, that's advertising that we cannot buy. So thank you for all the help that you do when you share our content. If you do not want to miss an episode because you are busy and you are on the go, the QR code that has just appeared, made available thanks to the generous contribution of the Ray Girl, will bring you to our pod page, podpage.com/the-true-north-eager-beaver, with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you go there and click subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth in terms of a podcast, zip, it goes right to your favorite podcast feed. You don't even have to go looking for it. It's right there, just waiting for you. Right there waiting for you, so that you can put us in your ears when you are on the go and take us with you for the days you're not able to watch us on video. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us in other ways, Kits Cassie and Kit Elaine, I have not forgotten you at the end of the show, even though I forgot you at the beginning, and I do not know how I did that, and I apologize again. But Kits Cassie and Kits Elaine will be beckoning you, welcoming you, urging you, encouraging you to take a visit to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where you can find all our content, including our new Beaver Tales section, which you will find in the video section and not the live, where we're going to be having more and more shorter form videos with the editorials over time. We have written editorials too. If you want to read them, they're on our Substack. And if you go visit our Substack, you will be the first to get to read our editorials before they go out to the larger population, and before we record them in video form for the Beaver Tales. But there you go. All these new features that we are putting up for you, kids and cubs, more content, so that you get more value from us, and more ways to consume us. Because sometimes people see a video and they see 2 hours and they go, that's too long. So trying some shorter segments so that we can get our message and our analysis out to more people, and have more people join the Beaver Lodge. And hopefully you too, as proud members of the Beaver Lodge, will find value in these additional products as well that we have been creating. So thank you so much for all of your help and attention. And when you come to our YouTube page, if you could click on the like, share, and subscribe buttons, that will help us with the algorithm. So thank you very much for that. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us in other ways, we do incur some costs to bring this show to you, and a generous contribution to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund, where you can fight the scourge that is dry beaver. Yum, 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 yum. Tasty, tasty, tasty water this morning. But no hot chocolate in my cup. Maybe you would like to help fix that. Buy your favorite beaver a mug of hot chocolate I have to maintain my levels, So if you would like to help with that, a little bit of coinage in our tip jar at the Emergency Hydration Fund would be greatly appreciated. And you can do that by going to our coffee page. That's ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. Thank you so much. Or if you're watching, please scan the QR code that has just appeared here at the top of the screen. And we appreciate that. If you would like to avoid the CE Tech Bros in the United States because you're buying Canadian, well, we have a way to do that too if you're donating. TrueNorthEagerBeaver@gmail.com is our email address, and a direct bank-to-bank transfer will do the trick. Again, you avoid giving the tech bros in the United States some money, and we get 100% of your donation because there's no middleman. And of course, your transaction is all Canadian. So win, win, and win. So we thank you for everything that you're able to do. Every cent that you send us does go back into the show to make it better. And we appreciate all of your support. If you want to write to us, TrueNorthEagerBeaver@gmail.com is also the email address that you would use to do that, kids and cubs. Send us a little thing, thoughts about the show, what you like, what resonated with you, what didn't work so well, some constructive criticism on how we can improve, suggestions for guests. All of it, we welcome it because we love to hear from you. It's your show too, right? And everything that you write to us and everything that you do send us gets invested back into the show to make it better. And Kids and Cubs, even though we are able to read everything, we're not always able to respond, but please know that we do factor it in. And if you want to reach us via our socials, at True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge or on the Jitter, and of course, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, which is our original home. And if you're listening on our YouTube channel, either live with the DAMFAM or at your own time, right down here in the comment section, leave us a little something because we do love to hear from you. And it gives us a warm fuzzy when you take time out of your day to write. There's lots of things that you could be doing. So when you have a little time to think of us, we're always touched by that. So thank you very much. Because democracy is something that you do, there is a little bit of a switch. Kids and Cubs, we've been urging you to go to mypcalberta.ca to sign the petition to have the Progressive Conservative Party of Alberta be registered with Elections Alberta as a viable party for the next provincial election whenever it comes. However, it seems that Danielle Smith has decided that she was going to challenge that because apparently she believes that if there's a Progressive Conservative Party of Alberta, that will cause some confusion because that one and the Wildrose sort of merged to create the UCP, and she's trying to block that. So it seems that Peter Guthrie and Mr. Sinclair have gone another way. Fine, you won't let us use the Alberta PC name. The Alberta Party still exists as it is and hasn't been doing much lately. So it seems that they are moving over that way instead to make their goals come true. So they're joining with Mr. Guthrie and Mr. Sinclair are joining with the centrist Alberta Party to file and rename it as the Progressive Conservatives and abandoning initial plans to launch a new party. So they're still going to try and use the name, but not try to revive the old party. Because Danielle Smith has made a challenge on that front and will basically say, well, there's an existing party, the Alberta Party, so that issue no longer exists, and we're going to rebrand it as the Progressive Conservative Party of Alberta. I'm sure that Danielle Smith will have another fit as a result, but that is what's going on that front, just to let you know. Words of wisdom, kids and cubs. It's the weekend, so please, if you have the opportunity, while you are getting some much needed rest, take some time to do something nice for yourself because you're worth it. All right? Treat yourself well. If not you, who will? Right? Kids and cubs, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, since we're together again, because yesterday we weren't, on the count of 3, kids and cubs, if I may, would you please say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on 1, 2, 3. Oh, there's even a throat singer back there. I heard you. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors. The Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community. And The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs, and I know this is going to send me over the 2-hour mark, but it doesn't matter because it's worth it. On Sunday is the beginning of the swimming portion of the World Aquatics Championships, where Canadian phenom Summer McIntosh will try to accomplish a feat that was only accomplished by Michael Phelps, getting 5 individual gold medals at a World Championship. Competition starts Sunday from Singapore, and it starts right off the bat with the 400 free on the first night. She will also be swimming in semifinals for the 200 butterfly about 30 minutes after, so it will be a big night for her. And of course, the 400 and the 800 meters are the 2 races where she will be going head to head with American legend Katie Ledecky. Katie Ledecky, who recently set a new world record in the 800. That is the one everybody's going to be watching to see whether or not Summer can actually reach the goal, because that's the one that's going to be the closest race. The other ones, she seems to be a lock to win unless something spectacular happens. So all Canada will be cheering to see if history will be made. 5 gold in 5 individual events at one World Championship. Go Summer, go. But again, our swim team and our diving team is very strong. And Summer is not the only one who I predict who will be bringing back some hardware for Canada from the World Aquatics Championships. So fingers crossed, get out your flags and be prepared to sit in front of your TV screens and your monitors and root for Canada. That is your civic duty over the next couple of days. All right. Amour et bisous. Mwah. And we will see you again on Monday. Bye, everyone.